today's economics class, we are going to discuss about the third lesson, that is the national income. Chapter 3, national income. And we have already studied about the national income in the first year itself, that is chapter 7 of first year economics class. Do you remember about that one? If not, just we will have a little bit of revision. After that, we will move to the regular classes. So what we are going to discuss today in this second year intermediate economics, today's topic is national income. In the introduction to national income of India, we have studied about the national income, how it is calculated and what are the methods used for calculating national income last year. But this year specifically, we concentrate on the national income of India. Yes, we are going to study about our country's national income. So in that, national income definitions, national income concepts, then revision of some of the concepts like final goods, intermediary goods, etc. we will discuss. Then trends in national income we will discuss. Then history of the national income estimates in India. Everything we are going to discuss in the first part. Then in the second part, we are going to discuss about the sectoral contribution to national income. Different sectors of an economy. We have already studied in the 10th class about this also. So we'll be having a revision. Along with that, the shares of different sectors to the economy of India. Share of 3 sectors to the national income of India, share of public sector and private sector to national income of India, then share of organized and unorganized sectors to national income of India, and finally, why do we study about the sectoral contribution to GDP? And later we'll have a doubt clarification session. Then we will complete the today's class. Now, let us move to the definition. What is the definition of national income? You have already studied that one. Just we are going to have a revision about that. National income is the money value of all the final goods and services produced by a country during a period of time, maybe 1 year, like that. National income consists of collection of different types of goods and services of different types. The value of all the final goods and services are added together and we may call that one as the national income. And in that national income, we have already studied about different concepts like GDP, GNP, NDP, NDPFC, NNPMP, NNPFC. MP means market price and FC means factor cost. You have already studied about that one. Just we'll have a revision about that. So what does this national income includes? That is in technically speaking, it includes consumption expenditure plus government expenditure plus investment expenditure plus net exports. That means exports minus imports. Then foreign production by the national residents, domestic production by the non-national residents, etc. We have discussed about all these matters in the last year's national income lesson, and that was already completed. If you have no idea about that one, you can go through the lesson once again. If you have textbook, you can keep that textbook with you also. So in that definition, there is one specific word, final good. What is a final good? A good that the final consumer consumes, that is a consumer good, is known as a final good. Here you can see the example here, that is the shirt. So we don't use shirt to make some other things. So shirt is a final product. You can see intermediary goods also, you have learned about that one. Intermediary goods are those goods which are used for the production of some other things. So here you can see fabric or the material. Shirt cloth is used to make shirts. So this fabric is a not a finished good, it is an intermediary good, and shirt is a final good. So you can have this comparison. So now let us see, the same good can be intermediary good as well as the final good. For example, salt. If a baker is using salt to produce some food items for selling purpose, so he is making some other item that is a final good, and as an ingredient he is using salt. So here salt is intermediary good, and if that salt is consumed directly, whenever you are eating rice or something at the dining table, if you are using salt, means that is a final good. So that is the difference. This is only just for your information when you move to the this session. So another important concept in this area is the per capita income. Per capita income or average income measures the average income earned by a person in a given area, city, region or country in a specific year, and it is calculated by dividing area's total income by its total population. This is the average income of a consumer or a citizen. Okay, so total national income divided by the population, then we will get the per capita income. Here in this example, you can see the total national income is, suppose it is $7,200, then only 4 members are there, means we will divide that by the 4, then we will get $1,800. This is the per capita income. This is also one of the important concept, and it is a 2-mark question also. Now let us move to the real portion, that is the history of national income calculation in India. Estimation of national income in India, there are 2 parts are there. Pre-independence, that means before the independence, and post-independence, that is after the independence. So before the independence, there was no central authority. We were under the control of the British rule. So there was no central authority, and some of the people of India, those who are interested, they tried to calculate the national income. So there was no central authority or government in India before independence to prepare national income estimates. Certain important citizens and economists made some estimates of national income of their personal level. In India, the first attempt to estimate national income and per capita income was made in the year 1867-68 by Sri Dadabhai Naoroji. This was followed by several intermittent efforts by individuals, officials as well as non-officials. Then after the independence, how the national income was calculated. Immediately after the independence, the government of India in 1949 appointed National Income Committee under the chairmanship of Professor P.C. Mahalanobis, Professor Gadgil and Dr. V.K. Avi Rao were 2 other members of this committee. So under the chairmanship of P.C. Mahalanobis. So he was also known as the father of the planning. So 5-year planning started just after the independence. So as part of that one, India had to calculate the national income. So for that, under the leadership of P.C. Mahalanobis, along with the other prominent persons like Professor Gadgil and V.K. Avi Rao, this committee, National Income Committee, was formed and they started collecting the data. The first report of the committee was published in 1951. Took too much time because there was no organized information collection centers or something at that time. There was no computer, there was no mobile phones. So it was very difficult for them to collect the data. And the final report in 1954. The task of preparing national income estimates has been assigned to the Central Statistical Organization. Now, which agency is collecting the data? Yes, it is the Central Statistical Organization, otherwise known as CSO. The CSO has been producing annual official estimates of national income of India since 1955 and publishing the same in its annual report, National Accounts Statistics. So CSO, Central Statistical Organization, is the authority in India to collect and publish the data regarding national income of India. Now let us move to the salient features of National Income Committee report. And the first one, national income of India, was 8,710 crores, and per capita income was rupees 225 rupees in 1948-49. See, India's national income was very low because India was under the control of the British rule and was not in a position to increase their production also. So the first statistics, recorded statistics, was by the National Income Committee report. Then during 1950-51, agriculture and allied activities contributed nearly half of the national income. Then national income, the majority of the part of the national income was contributed by the agriculture and allied activities. Next, mining, manufacturing and trading contributed about 1/6 of the national income. So the secondary sector share was very low. Then the tertiary sector, commerce, transport and communication, accounted for little more than 1/6 of the national income. Services account for about 1/3 of the national income. Then the share of the government sector in net domestic product was only 7.6% in 1950. That means the production under government was very low. So why do we study about this national income? You might have a doubt why you are studying about the national income. Because if we study about the national income, then only we will be able to know whether a country is developed or not, whether the country is developing or not, which sector is having the highest contribution. So which sector needed more preference in the planning, or government has to take care of which areas. All these things, the government can be analyzed in the light of the national income only. Without having the knowledge about the national income, the country cannot be make any planning towards the development. Now let us move to the next portion, trends in the growth of national income. So here I'm not going to explain everything. This is not so important portion, but there is an essay question at the back side of your textbook after this chapter. And in that, there is an essay question, trends in the growth of national income, but that is not at all an important question. Just have an idea about this one. Again, I am asking, why do we study economics? Because if we study economics, then only we will know the real position of our country and where the country stands and which area the country needs to be developed and everything. Not only that one, every student is aiming for some jobs. So if you concentrate on economics, you will get very good pass percentage or very good marks in the GK areas also, general knowledge areas. And also, if anybody is interested to prepare for the UPSC exam, one of the most important area is economics, especially this national income data and everything. The trends in national income, everything will be asked. So, if you have a goal to achieve that one, you have to study this one. So, knowledge is our life. So, in order to attain knowledge and using that knowledge, you'll get a job also in the future. So this area, even if you don't understand in a better way, try learning again and again. So somehow you will learn about that also. And now, trends in the growth of India's national income. The trend in national income also reflects on the standard of living of the people of India. Standard of living of the people can be known from the national income. If the national income increases, the standard of living of the people is increasing in matter. So if the national income is high, means automatically the per capita income, that is the average income, will also increase. It doesn't mean that average income is very high means every citizen in the India is having the same per capita income. We cannot say that one. But automatically we can tell that the India is developing, India is moving towards the development. That's all. Thus, the national income at current prices is influenced by both the increase in the production. There are two factors that affect the national income. One, the increase in the production of goods and services. Number two, the rise in prices. If the prices increase means automatically the national income, because the money value of all final goods and services is considered in the national income. So whenever the prices increases, automatically, even if production not increase, the national income will increase. But the main component that we have to understand is by increasing the production of goods and services, if the national income is increases, that is the real increases. So in order to make the national income figure comparable, these figures are deflated. That means continuous rise in prices is known as inflation. I have studied already in the last year. So we have to deflate that one. Means the effect of the inflation should be decreased or minused. So we have to deduct that one. For that purpose, we use constant prices method, and you might have heard about the consumer price index also. In that also the same concepts are coming. You might have studied about that one. Otherwise, whenever you get time, go through that also. So the deflated at constant prices, just for eliminating the effect of any change in the price level of the country. Price level lo చేంజ్ రాకుండే దాన్ని డిఫ్లేట్ చేసేసి ఆ ఇన్ఫ్లేషన్ ది ఎఫెక్ట్ తగ్గించేసి రియల్ ప్రైసెస్లో దాన్ని క్యాల్కులేట్ చేస్తారనమాట. ఫాస్ట్ 7 decades, that means 70 years, from 1950 to 2021, the average GDP growth rate was about 3.5% to 5%, like that. So the average, and Professor Raj Krishna termed this rate as, that is 3.5% as the Hindu rate of growth. And India has never been able to achieve its targeted rate of growth. That means in 5-year plans, they will have a targeted growth, 6%, 7%, like that. But now it has reached to that rate also, but our targeted rate will be always high, but we will not be able to achieve that one. But now what you have to understand is, from 1950 to 2021, gradually the national income was increasing. There is no decrease in the national income. So that trend, you keep it in your mind. Next, the sectors of the economy. Okay, in 10th class you have already studied, because our main topic today is the sectoral contribution of national income. And what is the sectoral contribution to national income? That means primary sector contribution to national income, secondary sector's contribution to national income, and tertiary sector's contribution to national income. Okay, so now we have to see what are the sectors, the basic economic activities. What are the basic economic activities? That is production and consumption, capital formation. These activities are done by 3 main sectors. They are primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. Now let us see what is primary sector. We are just going to have a revision. You have already studied about this one, primary sector. That is the agriculture and allied activities. Agriculture sector is the main sector in the primary sector. Agriculture sambandhichina, vyavasayam sambandhichina activities all comes in the primary sector. Here you can see these are the primary sector agricultural activities: fishing, livestock, coal mining, mineral extraction, forestry. Okay, these activities are known as primary sector, and from this, how much is the contribution to national income? Now let us see what is the secondary sector. Secondary sector is the manufacturing and construction and finished or usable product. Construction works, building works, household goods, factories, and mainly factories ankondi. Okay, in your mind you just keep making something using some machines or something, factory or something. That kind of sector is the secondary sector. Now tertiary sector, that is the service sector, the activities that don't directly produce a good. Services, we cannot see it visibly, But such kind of services are banking, insurance, transport, education, health, hospital, doctor services, teacher services. All these comes under the tertiary sector. And now let us move to the agricultural sector's contribution to national income. Contribution of primary sector to GDP. In this year, whenever you write an essay or something, there are side headings are there. You have to keep in your mind to keep these side headings and then write the answer. There will be some tables, pie charts or diagrams, whatever it may be. If you keep all these things together, it will become an essay. If you look at your textbook, it may be a little bit of complicated. You will feel like that. But here you see, I'll explain you in a simple way how you have to write this one. So sectoral contribution to national income means you have to start with the first, what is national income, what is the national income committee, and who collects the data in national income, CSO and national income committee. You have to write about all these things as the first introductory part. Then you can have a small mention about the trends in national income. It is increasing and it is affected by the increase in the goods and services. Then like that you can write. And after that, the main portion, you have to divide the sectors. That is contribution of primary sector to GDP. That is the first point. Underline that one and then make this table. You have to draw a table. Look at this table, and in the page book, in the textbook, page number 49, you can see this table. So it is a detailed table. You don't want to write everything in that table. You can make this table as simple as like this. So here you can see the sector, one side agricultural and allied activities, industry, services, percentage contribution, and here we take three different years: 1950-51, 1980-81, 2013-14. So in agriculture and allied services, you can see it was the contribution in 1950-51, the contribution was 55.4. But you see in 1980-81, the contribution decreased to 38%. And now in 2013-14, again the contribution of the agriculture decreased to 13.9. So by observing this one, you can understand the contribution of the primary sector has declined, isn't it? So once again, you look at this table. Here you can see the agriculture and allied activities in 1950-51, it was 55.4% and it decreased to 38% in 1980-81. And in 2013-14, provisional estimate, that is the PE means provisional, it is not final at that time. Whenever they were making the textbook, they used the provisional data. That's why they mentioned there it is PE. So don't think about that one. So the data, what we have to know is, only we have to know the share of the agriculture was decreasing year by year. And there are two reasons for this one. First one, there is no growth in the agricultural activities. Second, faster growth rate of the other sectors. So agricultural share is decreasing means we have to think about two things: whether the agricultural activities are decreasing because of that or due to faster growth in the other sectors. So for example, think about your first unit test. So you got 50 marks in the first unit test and all the others got 40 marks. So who got the highest mark? You got 50 marks and you are the highest because the others got only 40 marks. But in the second unit test, you got 55 marks, but the other students got 60 marks. Then who will be at the last? So in the first unit test, you are at the top level. But in the second unit test, even though you got more marks, but you are at the last. So the same situation is here. Agriculture share is increasing, but in the GDP it is not increasing because the share of the industry and service sectors has grown faster than that of the agriculture. Now let us move to the contribution of the secondary sector. Again, observe the table, and here the pie charts are also given for easy comparison. Go through that one. And the secondary sector in the here you can see the industrial sector, that is the secondary sector. Its contribution was only 15% in 1950-51, but it increased to 24% in the year 1980-81. Then again 2013 it increased by a marginal rate 2%, that is 26%. So we can tell that in the first situation, primary sector case, we told already the share of the primary sector is decreasing. But this industrial sector 15% to 24%, then 24% to 26%. So it is increasing gradually. Now let us move to the third sector, that is the service sector, that is the tertiary sector contribution. It was 29.6%, around 30% in the year 1950-51, and it increased to 38% in 1980-81, and it further increased to 59.9% in 2013-14. So when we compare these three sectors, which sector has increased fastly? That is the service sector. So it is an indicator that India is developing. So I want to tell you one more information to share with you. That is, we have already studied about the features of developing countries and developed countries. And in that, developing countries, the predominance of agriculture is one of the feature of developing country, or undeveloped countries, like that we have learned. So here, this is an evidence whether India is a developing country or developed country. So we can compare this data with the data of the developed country, like USA. The USA's share of agriculture to GDP was only 0.97%, below 1%. Industry's share is around 20%, and service share is around 80%. So you can see, once a country is developed in full potential, it is developed means its shares, the sectoral shares will also change like this. We can compare with another, UK. UK is also 0.68% agriculture sector contribution to GDP. Then industry's contribution is 19.73%, and the service sector contribution is 79.59% in the year 2016. So by looking at the data, you will be able to understand about that also. Now, let us move to another area, that is the share of public sector and private sector to the GDP. And before that, let us have an idea about the sectoral contribution of GDP in 2021, the latest data. Economics is a live subject. I'd like to tell you about that. Economics is a Nobel subject. It is having the Nobel Prize award is also given for this subject, because it is very much close to the real life of real life of the people, real life of any country. So economics is a live subject, means it's a growing subject. Every year it is a dynamic subject. It's changing. So last year national income will be different. This year national income will be different. It may increase or decrease, just like the people's weight or something, or growing a plant, like that. So it goes on changing. So 2021, the share of agriculture to GDP was 20.19%. The share of industry was 25.92%, and the service 53.89%. There is no major changes in this one. And also here you can see GVA, gross value added, and also this is not deflated, and this is only current prices basis, and this is corona time also, so there will be a little bit of variations in the data also. The service sector is the largest sector in India. Gross value added at current prices for the service sector is estimated at 96.54 lakh crores, that is crores rupees in 2020-21. The service sector accounts for 53.89% of total India's gross value added of 179.15 lakh crores of Indian rupees. With QVA of 46.44 lakh crore, the industrial sector contributes 25.92%, while the agricultural and allied sector share is 20.19. So this is only for your information only, and this is taken from the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Government of India, 17 June 2021, latest data. You can get it from the internet also. Now let us move to the next portion, that is the share of the public sector as well as private sector to GDP. So I have told you already, this is one of the important essay question. Not so important, but very easy to learn. So first we have to write about the introduction portion. After completing that, share of agriculture to GDP, then share of secondary sector to GDP, then share of tertiary sector to GDP using the table and diagrams or pie diagram, whatever you like. So you have to prepare yourself a note so that it will be easy for you. So after writing that one, you can talk about this one, the share of public sector and the private sector. Okay, as you know, India is following a socialist pattern of society. The government of India observed mixed economy. Okay, our country is following mixed economy. That means there is the coexistence of public sector as well as the private sector. Public sector is there, private sector is there. Private sector means the ownership and management is in the private hands, whereas in the public sector, it is in the hands of government or in the public authorities. That is the difference. Private sector means private people owns and manages that production and everything. And public sector means it is under the control of the government. That is the mixed economy. Now look at the table in your textbook, page number 51. You can open your textbook also in page number 51 if you have textbook. Otherwise, look at this screen itself. You can see that one. I'm not keeping all the data. We have selected some data and we keep that only. That's enough for you. We can clearly have an idea about the share of public sector and private sector in GDP. So look at this one. In 1950-51, the share of public sector was 8% and the share of private sector was 92%. In 1980-81, the share of public sector increased to 20%, while the share of private sector decreased to 80%. In 1991, public sector share increased to 23%, then the share of the private sector decreased to 76.4%. In 1991, there was the selling of the private sector, disinvestment happened, and globalization, due to the effect of globalization to happen. Then from that day onwards, the public sector share is decreasing. You can observe after 1991, the share of the public sector 2009-10 it decreased to 21.4. Then the share of the private sector increased to 78.6. 2012-13 data 20.4. That is the share of the public sector, and the share of the private sector increased to 79.6. So this share is increasing and decreasing according to the preference given by the government of India. The policies taken by the government of India, the share may differ. Here you can see the bar chart regarding that data for comparison. You can compare that also. Here in this color, that is the public sector, and here private sector is given in the blue color. So comparison, you can see if the height difference is more means disparity is more. If height difference is less means they are having less disparity, the public and private sectors. Now let us move to another topic, that is the shares of organized sector and unorganized sector to GDP. I've studied already about the organized sector and unorganized sector in the 10th class. Organized sector covers those enterprises or places of work where the terms of employment are regular and therefore people have assured work, security of employment, medical benefits, paid leaves, retirement benefits, etc. These kinds of sectors are known as organized sector. Wherever these facilities are not available and fragmented, small kinds of sectors are known as, whether it is under the private or public, it is known as unorganized sector. Don't think that all the government area, under the government only there is organized sector, in the private there is no organized sector, like that. Don't think. Wherever these facilities are available, assured work, security of employment, medical benefits, paid leaves, retirement benefits, all these are available even if in the private sector, that sector is considered as the organized sector. So here you can see in 1980-81, the share of organized sector was 30%, but it increased to 70. Sorry, the share of the unorganized sector was 70% at that time. In 2007-8, the share of the organized sector increased to 42.9%, while the share of unorganized sector decreased to 57.1%. This is one of the indicator of India's development. You see, in 1980-81, only very less percentage contributed to the national income of India by the organized sector. But you can see in 2008, it increased to 42%. It is coming somewhat equal. Look at this picture. Here, the gap is more, the height difference is more, so more disparity is there. But here you can see almost equal, not equal, even then it is coming equal. Equality is coming. So in this chapter, you are going to study about the income inequality, poverty, unemployment, everything you will study. This is one of the important chapter also. So observe that also. So in that essay, you can include these 2 points also, sectoral shares plus this share of public sector and private sector, and then the share of organized sector and the unorganized sector. Now, why do we study about the sectoral contribution to GDP? In order to understand the progress of country, we need to study more about the sectoral contribution to GDP. A primitive economy, that means a country is developing or not, by looking at the contribution of the GDP, we can understand. For example, primitive economy, that means less developed economy, will primarily be based on primary sector, that means agricultural and allied activities, with most of the people employed in agriculture and the production of food. As an economy develops, improved technology enables less labor to be needed in the primary sector and allows more workers to produce in manufactured goods. Actually, we have studied about India's agricultural, organized sector, unorganized sector, everything. Then, whenever the economy develops, for example, we use tractors, drillers, or some other technologies, and even borewells and electric equipments for production purpose. So that means we need less labor force to work in the agricultural sector. That doesn't mean that agricultural production is decreasing. No, agricultural production is not decreasing, but we use more complicated and highly developed technology for production, and more labor force will be available for some other works. Like in the primary sector, we require less number of labor. So these balanced labor should be employed in the secondary as well as the tertiary sector. When the production increases, the services required also increases. Whenever the activities, production activities increases, secondary sector increased, primary sector developed, then automatically there is the need for banking sector, insurance sector, and schools, hospitals, everything is increased. Everything will be increased. So the service sector also will be increased. This leads to the expansion of secondary and tertiary sectors. Thus, a country progresses towards development. So, by studying about the sectoral contribution, we will be able to understand how the position or what position the country is, whether it is undeveloped or developing or developed. This data we can collect, and if not, where there is any if there is any problem, there means the government can make some policy changes to make things towards the development. Okay, they can guide towards the development by using this data. And the important questions that may be asked from this area. Briefly explain the sectoral contribution to national income. I have already explained you how to write that one. Now you have to read the textbook once, then your running notes. Whenever this class is listened, you might have made a running note. Use that running note and prepare yourself an essay for your exam. You might have some guides also with you. Second, 2 mark question, very important, that is per capita income. We have already learned several times about that one. Even from the 10th class itself, we learned it is the average income, national income divided by the population. Now it's the time for asking doubts.